Have you ever been jealous of a cow? Why should that bovine freak be able to jump to the moon when my precious baby orc Ajaj can't? Now, you might be thinking, Thomas, host of this show, what in Boghab's name are you talking about? Allow me to explain. See, Dungeons & Dragons is a game about potential, and I want to have the potential to bring my character to the moon. What? The moon? Why not just teleport there? And then I would think, shut up, coward. Oh, I'm on the moon. Wow, good job, you cast a spell. That's what level 1 characters do. See, the journey to the moon is not about being on the moon. It's about the journey to the moon. And that journey involves a lot of child sacrifice. Hello everybody, and welcome to R-Dnd-Diculous, where we are going to look at some truly wacky things you can do in Dungeons & Dragons 3.5 edition. So, 3.5 edition is weird. I assume most people here are familiar with 5e, and understandably so. 3.5 is convoluted and almost bloated with content. 5e was made specifically to try to simplify it so you wouldn't have to study for years just to learn basic information. Like attacks of opportunity. This isn't an exaggeration. It took me about 4 or 5 years of DMing before I learned that you can do special attacks as an attack of opportunity. Like when somebody not trained in it tries to trip you, you have the opportunity to try to grab them by the throat and slam them down as an attack of opportunity. Now, this highlights really the pros and cons of 3.5 edition. On one hand, it's really cool because you have the ability to clothesline people as they try to run towards you, but on the other hand, it takes years to figure that out. Also, there are just so many options, it's easily overwhelming. But to an observant eye, some things seem to have potential. One of the biggest and most important differences between the two editions is magic items. So in 5e, magic items are almost exclusively controlled by the DM. They don't even have prices listed. Whereas in 3.5, you can buy anything and you can build anything. And I mean anything. See, this chart right here, it details every part of magic item creation. The gold cost, the XP cost, the time investment, all of it. This is where our moon jumping comes in, but it'll be more relevant later. We're getting rather ahead of ourselves. Let me just preface this with, please do not do this to your DM. But if you do, it's not my fault. This is the sort of type of shenanigans that chaotic neutral types are made fun of online for. But given that you are chaotic neutral and you want to jump to the moon, I'll be assuming that your DM is in fact letting you do this. Before we start with our lunar leaping character, we need to figure out exactly what it means to jump to the moon. And with that, we need to calculate exactly what we need to do. So, how do we do this? With a jump check, of course. In 3.5, before the modern day 5e athletics check, athletics was split into multiple different categories, like climb, swim, or jump in this case. Fortunately for us, the DMG lets us be able to calculate any distance to jump to, theoretically. All we need to know is the distance, and then we can get our jump check. So, how far away is the moon? Well, on your best day, 221,771 miles away, which is inconceivably far away. Luckily, though, we don't actually need to jump that far. We just need to break the atmosphere. The material plane doesn't exactly have the same physics as Earth, your DM might say, in which case you respond, hey stupid! The Planner Handbook, page 135, states that the material plane functions exactly as our natural real world does. Also, page 63 of the Planner Handbook says that zero gravity functions like flying. And if your DM happens to say there is no moon, you say werewolves, which will be relevant later, of course. So where does the atmosphere end? It never explicitly says this in any of the books, so we're just going to go with that Planner Handbook rule from earlier about how it's all the same natural laws. According to sciencing.com, It's about 62 miles, much more manageable than the 200,000 from earlier. So 62 miles is 327,360 feet total. That's not too bad, right? Let's just plug that into our handy dandy equation, which says a high jump is 4 times the distance. And that makes our jump check only 1,309,440. Now, to someone unfamiliar with 3.5, this number seems absurdly, impossibly, unfathomably large. And that's because it is. So this is where we can actually start. This is where we begin to build our character. We want to do this as close to a regular player as possible, so we're going to be assuming only level 20. With an LA0 race. Of course, we're going to want as high a strength score as possible, considering that's what jump is based off of, and out of the LA0 races, Orc is our best candidate. And it's also the best because it's the Orc. That's +4 to strength and -2 to all mental stats, which is a little annoying, but it doesn't really matter considering we're completely focused on jumping. So that's what we'll go with. So Cord is the god of brawling, chaotic good, and of strength.
Oh yeah!
So that special ability of the strength domain is once per day it allows us to add our cleric level to our strength, which is a tiny bit underwhelming, but it gets improved with a very specific addition. While we're at level 1, we're also going to take the martial study feat from Tome of Battle. With this, we have a couple of options, but we're going to choose Tiger Claw. See, this feat gives us the key skill as a class skill permanently, and for Tiger Claw, that class skill is Jump. Naturally, we're going to add skill points into this to max it out by the time we get to level 20. Also, it gives us a maneuver from the Tiger Claw, so we're going to go with Sudden Leap, just to make it so we can jump as a swift action, which isn't relevant, but it's cool. So, when we start out, our ability scores with point buy, hopefully, are going to be Strength of 18, 13 Dexterity, and 14 Intelligence and Wisdom. The other ones don't really matter, but after the racial modifications, we have 22 Strength, 13 Dexterity, and then 12 in both Intelligence and Wisdom. So we're going to max out both Concentration and Jumping. Concentration just because it's kind of useful in case your DM tries to pull some shenanigans like, oh, you can't breathe in space. And then Jump because of course. We're also going to want to put 9 ranks into Knowledge Religion for our Prestige class, which is a class we can get later on. And we're going to put 5 ranks into Tumble, which gives a synergy bonus of +2 to Jump. We're also going to want the trait Muscle Bound. This adds +1 to all strength checks and -2 to all dexterity checks. We're also going to pick up a couple of flaws because we really need them to maximize our jumping potential. So flaws will give you a bonus feat in exchange for a rather big nerf, but they can be mitigated sometimes. We're going to go with Shaky and Non-Combatant because our Orc does not love to fight, he loves to jump, which is what he will do. In exchange, we get the feats Dodge and Mobility. They're not super useful, but they're prereqs for later. At level 3, we get Endurance, another useless one, and at level 6, we're going to get Power Attack, another meager one, but they are also prerequisites. These ones for a Prestige class. At level 9, we're going to get another prereq. We're going to get Wild Talent from the Expanded Psionics Handbook. This one will come in handy later. At 12, we're going to put our 2 first feats to good use, and we're going to get Mighty Leaper from the Savage Species. This will give us +10 competence bonus on all jump checks, which is very useful. At 15, we're going to use our Wild Talent feat to be able to apply for our Psionic feat, in this case Mental Leap, which gives us another +10, this time on typed bonus, whenever we expend our Psionic focus. This is also where concentration comes in handy, so we'll be glad that we put skill ranks into it earlier. And then at level 18, we're finally going to get Vault from the Dragon Compendium. This is an incredibly useful feat and probably the best one we're going to have all day. So this is going to reduce it from 4 times the height to only 3 times the height, which is quite an improvement. So I've been mentioning different types of bonuses, which I'm not sure if those are in 5e or not. Like competence, dodge, all sorts of different things, or untyped. And that's because most types of bonuses do not stack, which is very annoying, but I'm pretty sure I did well in this case. Also, at some point, we're going to Prestige class into the Mighty Contender of Cord class from the Dragon Magazine 283. This class not only increases our strength, but is actually also going to improve the strength domain ability I mentioned earlier. For one, it stacks with Cleric in order to determine how big that bonus is. As you remember earlier, it adds your Cleric level to your Strength. In this case, it's going to add our Cleric level and our Mighty Contender of Chord level. Additionally, you can, instead of doing a Feat of Power, you can do a Surge of Strength. And this increases that bonus by 50% again at level 20, giving us a whopping bonus of plus 30 to Strength. Now, I should clarify, this is an enhancement bonus, which means that it does not stack with either magic items or things like full strength. Also, every 4 levels in any class in 3.5 allows you to add +1 to any ability score of your desire, which of course we're going to do nothing but strength. So that gives us +5, bringing us to 27, and then Mighty Contender of Chord gives us an additional +2, so now we have 29 strength, which is already alright, but we also have money. Now, I did say earlier that most magic items don't stack with it, but there is one that does, and that is the Manual of Gainful Exercise. Our wealth level at level 20 should be 760,000 gold, which is more than enough to afford this manual. So what this manual does is, after reading it within like a week or something, it's weird, we get +5 inherent strength bonus. This brings us to a 34 with a modifier of +12. This is already great, obviously, but we can improve it even further. Of course, these improvements require allies, so you're going to need to get some other people on board with this. This is when it starts to get a little messy. See, your party members are going to be 3. One is going to be a Cleric of Nerul, the God of Death. Now, he allows this party member to get the Pestilence domain, similar to the Strength domain from earlier, but it also allows him to do certain other very interesting things that we'll get into later. You're also going to have an Evil Wizard, which is just for convenience, and you're going to have an Artificer, which will almost inevitably be evil. So this is where a bit of that messiness I was talking about earlier comes into play, because all of their actions need to be completely independent of our Orc, because a Chaotic Good Cleric of Chord would not allow them to do half of the atrocious things and war crimes that they're going to do later that you are going to allow. The simplest way to improve our jump check is going to be the jump spell that the wizard can know. This adds a +30 enhancement bonus to jump, which is just super useful, and it stacks with everything we already have. We're also going to have the wizard cast Expeditious Retreat on us, which increases our speed by 30, which then increases our ability to jump by +12. But we should also use Polymorph. I know it's incredibly disappointing to not be an orc jumping to the moon, but there's a good reason for it. We absolutely cannot ignore the 3 Cream. This is a monstrous race from the Shining South book that has a +2 bonus to strength, which is going to lower ours by 2, but it also has a +30 racial bonus to jump. Now our orc boy is more of a mantis boy, but he's still an orc at heart, so I'm going to still refer to him as that. Like, being a mantis is cool and all, but it's not an orc. You don't get the same level of coolness from not being an orc. So this also does mean no enlarged person, but that's not that big of a deal. Its benefits are far, far overshadowed by the 3 Cream's jumping ability. Finally, we have Lycanthropy. Yes, it is finally werewolf time. So we're going to inflict our little jumper with Werebear Lycanthropy, which, in case you don't play D&D, yes, it is a real thing. Now, there are 2 issues with this. 1, alignment, and 2, opportunity. See, to be a Mighty Contender of Chord, you need to be Chaotic Good, and Werebears by their nature are Lawful Good. Now, you're only forced to be that alignment if you're in either Hybrid or full-on Beast mode, and thankfully, when we're in Orc/Mantis mode, we can still be Chaotic Good and still apply for that Prestige class. Unfortunately, the +16 strength from being a Werebear also does not apply when we're not in Beast/Hybrid form. Thankfully, we have our Artificer buddy, and the Artificer can make a Wand of Strength of the Beast from the Player's Guide to Failure. This adds half the strength bonus of your animal form to your character. I think half of all the physical attributes, I'm not sure, I'll fix it in post. So this gives us an untyped +8 to our non-bear orc mantis creature. Well, I'll just not have a werebear show up, your DM thinks, and then you think, wow, what an idiot, because your friend is playing a cleric of Nerul. Now it's coming in handy. Nerul is only one of 2 gods that has access to Pestilence domain, which is a very important spell in it. The 6th level spell granted by the Pestilence domain is Curse of Lycanthropy from
Complete Divine.
This allows you to inflict lycanthropy of your choice to the person of your choice. In this case, you're going to inflict your Orc Mantis friend with Werebear lycanthropy. Finally, the Artificer is going to make a Wand of Nature's Balance, which is going to allow your Artificer friend to reduce his strength by 4 to give you an untyped +4, but, you know, that's just to add even further. Now, our strength is 40 freaking 4. I think all of you can recognize that this is rather massive. And to even further this, we have access to the Surge of Strength from the Mighty Contender of Cord Prestige class. For 1d4 +1 rounds per day, we can have a 74 strength. We have a modifier of +32, which is higher than most creatures' strength scores. In case the insanity of this is not getting to you, Cord, the god of strength that we worship, has a strength of 55, which is marginally less than ours. I told you it gets kind of nuts. So now we have to figure out our jump skill. Max ranks at level 20 is 23 ranks, so then we also add our strength to that. And then because of our polymorph, we get +30 due to 3 green, plus the jump spell of +30 again. Our feats are going to give us a total of +20, and then we also get +2 from our synergy. And if we get a 60-foot head start, which why wouldn't we, we're going to get another +12. And then finally, +1 from Musclebound, and we have a jump check of 150. So like I said earlier, with the Vault feat, you can reduce a high jump down to 3 times the distance instead of 4 times if you use a polearm to supplement this. So now our jump check is 982,080, which is much easier than our million plus from earlier. And if we take 20 on our jump check, we get a grand total of 170. Now this doesn't seem super impressive next to the 900,000 number, but for reference, the highest human high jump was 65 inches by Kevin Banya. And while that's impressive, it pales in comparison to our Orc Mantis bear friend. Now we are going to be using the 3 Kreen body as reference since, you know, that's the body he's in. But the average 3 Kreen is 6'1". We can jump 56 feet high. This little freak show can jump 9 times his height when humans have difficulty jumping 0.9 of our height. As for a long jump, we can jump 175 feet away, or 1/3 of the entire Colosseum. But ultimately, we are 981,910 away from our DC. And finally, this is where our child sacrifice comes in.